Hi, guys. Welcome back to Cupcakes and Protein Shakes. I'm your host, Savannah. We are sitting down with a fellow bikini athlete. So, welcome to the show. Introduce your name and tell me where you're from.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, Savannah, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Huge fan, and it was great to meet you in person when you came up to Seattle. So, my name is Kellie Keehr. I, like you mentioned, am an NPC bikini competitor based here in Seattle, Washington. I actually live in Sammamish, so which is like 30 minutes east of Seattle. And yeah, just excited to be here and share my story, some tips and tricks, and just
Yeah.
talk about all things bodybuilding.
I know. It was so much fun and like to go out to dinner just to get to talk to you. Like that's why like I love competing because I didn't know anyone going to Seattle. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to dinner by myself. I'm like, hey, would you go with me? And you're like, so amazing. Help come work the ACB booth, like anything and everything. So like I love the sport of bodybuilding because like you get to meet amazing people. And we're going to start with your journey. So, where does this begin? Like, when was the first time that you ever heard about bodybuilding, or like, how did you get intrigued into, ooh, I might want to do this?
Yeah, no, I seriously, I love sharing this story. So I actually, when I met my husband like 12 years ago, one of the fun facts about him was that he had actually done a bodybuilding show when he was in college. And that was the first time that I'd ever heard or even met somebody that had done a show. And I thought, but like you're normal. Like I thought just like gym bros and like Jersey Shore like gym rats did things like bodybuilding competitions. So like I'm intrigued by what your experience was. And he like shared that it was really difficult for him because he did it while he was in college. Like he still partied on the weekends. So like he really didn't do like a
Yeah.
full strict plan, but he still got up on stage and did it, had like a posing coach and everything. And so I was like, okay, that's like really interesting. So that was kind of the first glimmer of a thought that I had around bodybuilding. And then I'm also a huge reality TV fan, so Real Housewives of any city. And because they showed both Teresa and Tamra from New Jersey and OC doing bikini competitions, I watched those like shows happen. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting to see a little bit more of like what it takes. And as time went on, I got like really into my career. So it's like another part of me is that I am a career professional. I work a corporate America desk job. I actually am a director at Salesforce, so I'm leading a global team. So it's like not a small part of my life. It's a very big part of my life. And just going through my career development and that progression, I lost the athletic side of myself because like I grew up doing athletics, was always into sports, soccer, tennis, running, like all of that. And so I just got to a point where just didn't feel like myself. I was tired of feeling sick and tired. So I did start doing group fitness classes as my next phase, getting back into the athletic side of myself. And after doing that for a couple of years, I had plateaued and just wanted to try a new challenge. And, instead of maybe doing something like just going to the gym and training in weights, I was like, no, let's just do a bodybuilding show. Let's just
Of
like go
course, it
for
makes
it.
sense. Why not?
Yeah, I was like, no, let's just full send. We're just going to go all the way. And I talked to my husband about it. And because he had done a show, I wanted his advice of like, where do I start? Like, how should I even think about going about this? And he told me, well, there's only one coach that I would ever trust you with, and they're local here in Seattle. So he took me to Pete Grubbs at Construction Zone Fitness and had a consultation like October of 2019 and immediately signed on, was like, no, this is it. Like, we're just doing it. So, lesson learned through that process. And not that I would have done it any other way, but like, didn't research coaches, didn't like look at show schedules, was just like, nope, like, I'm signing up, I'm doing it. I'm going to do the Emerald Cup here in the spring of 2020, and we're just like going to do it. And pretty much the rest is history.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's hard because when you know nothing, you just are like, yeah, whatever, let's just do it. Let's sign up for the most nearest show locally to me and the local coach, and that is it. That's how it works. I don't
Yep.
know anything, they know stuff, and surely like they're obviously they know everything. But when you are jumping into sport of bodybuilding, it is like important that your coach takes your health very seriously, that they number one, they know what they're doing, they've done this before, and then maybe even specifically to like the bikini division, like are they knowledgeable in
Mm-hmm.
bikini? If some athletes might be great at training transformations or great at training men, but not necessarily women. So is this someone that has trained women before? Like, what do their athletes look like? Have they ever had competitors? I mean, all of those different things. Like those are the big, the big things
Yes.
that, and again, I did the same thing. I did the same thing. I posted on Facebook and was like, anyone know any bikini competition trainers? There was a local coach at my gym. It turned out to be a great fit, but I was like signed up. I didn't interview anybody. I just said, okay, you know somebody. And I was the first person I referred. So I just was like, that is it. And then we were coaching together for 3 years. And then I ended up switching to more like bikini specific. But if you really want to like take the sport well and like go fast in the right direction, having a coach that knows their stuff at the
Yes.
very beginning, it is going to be helpful. But again, like sometimes you need to make that mistake. And other times it works out really great. Like sometimes your first coach is your only coach. I've seen that happen before. And it might be a local coach and they maybe never even had bikini competitors, but it ends up being a good fit for you. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit about like first time athletes. Just like beware that there is a lot of different coaches, but make sure it's the right coach for you, not just the first one that you find.
Yes, absolutely. And I am very much in the same scenario as you. Like, I lucked into having an amazing coach. I'm still with them. I could never see being anywhere else, to be honest, because they care about me as like a whole person, not just as an athlete. They've been in the industry for decades. He used to train Tangi Johnson when she was an IFBB fitness pro. So like the pedigree is there. It's just like a smaller shop because like my coaches, they manage their own gym space. So everything is like by appointment, but they're very hands-on and everything has been individually tailored based on like the competitor's needs. And I love that they also then travel with us to all of our shows so that we do have that really unique touch and experience with them. So again, like one of those scenarios where it's like, yes, do your research, but sometimes you do luck into a really amazing situation.
Which yeah, hopefully that's the case. But just beware if you're like, oh, I didn't know that my local coach maybe like there's other coaches out there. And I would say 99% of coaches are done online like
Yeah.
these days. So just if you have someone local that you can see you in person, great. But most other coaches, you're gonna have to do on online, which is I think it's about the same. Like there is benefits to having in person, obviously, like they can see, feel, touch you, but they still need your check and picture, still need your measurements.
Yep.
You're still doing your plan by yourself. So this one, you
Yes.
said 2019 was first year of competing.
Yes, so I signed on in October of 2019. So I think my first meal plan started that November. So like a week and a half later, got my first plan, printed out my Excel spreadsheet, had it on the side of the fridge, went meal like shopping for all of my food. Like so excited to do all of the meal prepping and to follow like a structured plan. And like I had mentioned, I was aiming to do shows in the spring of 2020. I had my eyes set on doing the Emerald Cup that's here in Bellevue, Washington, at the end of April. And because I had never done a show before, we had agreed that I should do a show in Spokane, Washington. So I think it was the Empire at the time, and it was going to be earlier in April so that I could have like a warm up show before going into the bigger show that I had wanted to do well in. And again, started through that process, was prepping, and I was 4 weeks out from my first show, and COVID hit the state, and all of the state of Washington was shut down. And it was wild because I'm sure everybody remembers like where they were in that exact moment when those announcements came out for each of their states, where it's like, no, like everything public is shut down, restaurants are closed, like,
I thought it was a joke. I literally didn't believe it because I was working at Amazon at the time in 2020, and like our higher ups were just like talking about these like special shipments, like making sure there's sanitizer. I like a couple people started wearing masks like way before the mask mandate. I was like, these people, these germaphobes, what are they doing? What
mm-hmm.
are they doing? And then I distinctly remember it was just like one day in March, like going to the grocery store, not having paid attention to the news, and like the meat shelves were gone. The
Yes.
toilet paper, I like the full toilet paper aisle was gone. It was the scariest feeling of like that panic in your stomach of oh no, is this like the apocalypse? Is the world actually ending? Um, we weren't prepared to go grocery shopping at the time. We were just going to grab like a frozen pizza of some sort or like just a couple here and things. And then when I see people with two, three carts and all the breads and the meats and just stocking up on stuff, oh no, I need to go stock up on stuff. I need to go stock up on stuff.
Yes.
And then again, shows got canceled. I'm like, there's no way bodybuilding shows are getting canceled. They've never canceled them before. Sure
Yes.
enough, every concert, like even sports, like major league sports
Hmm.
were canceled, big shows, and then national show, like everything. And again, I had my heart set in what was it? It was supposed to be USA July.
Oh yeah, in July, and that
I
just kept getting like pushed, and then they changed locations.
pushed it to December and then they changed it from Vegas to Arizona, which actually was kind of cool. And then I ended up doing North Americans in a tent in September because it was the first national show. And that was like a whole different thing. But the protocols for competing, like I've seen some people have pictures with themselves with masks on
Mhm.
stage because they still were competing. And I honestly feel like I didn't get sick because I was prepping.
Yeah, I so for us, because Washington was one of the first states that got shut down, and we had some of the strictest protocols around like mask mandates, like hours where you could go shopping, because they were also trying to offer special hours to like protected groups, so like the elderly, being able to have them come in like an hour before stores would open so that they could do their shopping in safety before like the general public and the rest of like everybody could go in. So it was just wild to try and manage my whole schedule. And on top of that, like I was working a different corporate job at the time. I
Yeah.
thought I'm just going to be working from home for like
Yeah.
2 weeks, like not a big deal. And that was like a complete pivot. My husband had already been working remote for many years in his career. And so it was just a huge adjustment for our household of trying to find space then for me to manage my work and what I needed to get done on top of still in this like deep, deep in prep mindset. Because again, like I was 4 weeks out, I thought that I was going to be stepping on stage in like a matter of days. And then that didn't happen. And to your point, like I just felt so out of control and like devastated and angry and frustrated. And like legitimately vocalized to my husband, I'm like, all of this was for nothing. Like I literally spent all of this time and like sacrificed like my Christmas holiday, my like New Year's, I sacrificed Super Bowl, which is like a huge basically holiday event for our household. And I was like, I gave up all of these things and for what? Like I'm not even doing a show. Like this is BS. And I remember very vividly like still following though my cardio protocol, still following my meal plan and thinking, well, but like, why did I sign up to even do a show in the first place? Like, I didn't originally do it because I just wanted to get on stage. Like, stage was the outcome to what I had originally set out to do. And really like taking the time, slowing down through COVID because like we were confined to our houses. We really weren't seeing family. I like had to sit with myself and my feelings because also still being in prep, like I wasn't drinking. I was really trying to not like be off meal plan. I had to sit with those uncomfortable thoughts deep down in myself. And I realized I had signed up to do bodybuilding and to do a show because I wanted to be challenged and I wanted to do something different that was hard for myself and to learn more about myself. And I could do that without having a show date. And so I think it took me probably like the first 4 to 6 weeks of lockdown to kind of go through that process of realization of like, no, like I can still keep doing this without a show because I wanted just to be challenged. It didn't have anything to do with the sparkly like bikini, stepping on stage, like getting those photos, because what I had been chasing basically since I had started prepping all of a sudden became about external validation and like the photos and all of the positive like comments and reinforcement I was getting from others. It had nothing to do with how I felt about myself. And after all of that was taken away, I just had to have a really real moment of no, like that's not what I want. Like I want this for me. I don't want this for anybody else. And if anything, like finding bodybuilding before COVID in a lot of ways saved me because it gave me the structure to stay with a schedule and a routine when everything else felt out of control. And I learned very quickly what things were a choice and how much power I actually have in those choices that I can make to be able to stay through that process. And yeah, I mean, if anything, like in terms of advice for first time competitors, it's like just really understand why you've signed up to compete, because based on like what happened with COVID, like you just never know what's going to be outside of your control. And the only thing that you can focus on, that you can truly control in your life, is the choices that you make minute to minute, second to second, day to day. And you just need to own that and be satisfied that you have done everything that is within your power, and let all of the rest of it be.
Yeah, that is such good advice because like when you go into a prep, it shouldn't be, oh, I want it like that. You shouldn't even really be thinking that far because you don't know. There's so many times where people have been, and myself included, 52 weeks out, 30 weeks out. And like that's a lot of time. And yes, it's great to have your eyes looking forward, but it's bit me in the ass because sometimes I tried to prep, but my body wasn't ready. And I had felt pressure to continue because I had proclaimed on social media that I'm whatever weeks out for everyone just to
Mhm.
participate in when it should have probably been done in the quiet. And yeah, you can definitely tell people about it, but you shouldn't just do it because you're like, oh, I just want to win. Like there's, if that is truly a reason, like your why, this is going to be a very hard sport because you don't win every time, even if
Yeah.
you are perfect, which is hard for people to understand that don't know the sport because a marathon runner, like it's easy. They have the best
Yeah.
time. A basketball game, like it's points versus points, they scored more baskets. It logically makes sense. Bodybuilding, especially bikini, does not logically make sense for who wins based on how they look because it's subjective, but they do have criteria to a certain point, but at the end of the day, like
Yeah.
we can't really like put it down on paper of like, well, why did she get first versus the other? Well, she just kind of had the sparkle glow
Yeah.
today, and
She had the it
and
factor
the
today.
it factor. It's like, okay, well, that's not like it's not you can't
Yeah.
see, feel,
It's not
touch that.
tangible.
It's not yeah, it's not tangible, it's not something. So when you're going into prep, like know that even if you don't step on stage and you go through a prep, that's okay too.
Mhm.
Even if the show is canceled or bodybuilding cancels or whatever, like you still get to live in that body that you made
Yeah.
every day. And like
Absolutely.
every single day. It's 364 days. You get to live in this crazy built in shape body and you love it and you have your habits every day of drinking water and then every day of your meals and you like it and you make those choices. But yeah, when things happen crazy, because there is going to be, unfortunately, like traumas, death, car crash, something bad's going to happen. Like there always is, especially in a prep, it's a long period of time. So you just have to plan like no matter what, just control the controllables. Whatever
Mhm.
other people are thinking, doing, you can't control that. You can't control if your show gets canceled, you can't control that. But most of the time now, that's not really an issue, but it could still happen and you
Yeah.
just never know. So you need to be locked in on your why and realize like you don't need a trophy. You really don't. You want to do this because you want to do it every day for you. You don't need anything else. So it's really good advice. And it's hard for I think it's hard for every first time athlete to understand that
Yes.
until they're put in that situation where either they don't win and this is after a show and now you're like, oh no, why did I waste 4 months, 6 months of my life for a nothing placing? And you have to live
Yep.
with that for a whole year plus in an off season and just go through your head and whatever. Or, sometimes COVID happens and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, like, it's taken me up until this point. So, what, 4 years into this journey and
Yeah.
process to come to a realization of like, the sport is actually mental.
Yeah.
You do what you produce is a physical product, and that's your physique that you showcase on stage. But that physique that you showcase, that physical tangible output, is a result of the mental work that you have put in day in day out. So it's being aware of like, what are you consuming physically and like through social media, through content, what are the things that you are like delivering to others around you during that time in prep, and being conscious, because I know that for me, even I used to use the excuse of like, oh, I'm in prep and I'm grumpy and like cranky and I'm just going to take it out on everybody around me. It's like, no, that makes you a shitty person.
Yes.
You need to realize that you have made this choice, others have not made this choice. And so
Yeah.
because it's on you, you still have to show up as the best version of yourself for others because they all care about you. It's not just you have a free hall pass to be shitty because you feel shitty. Like you feel shitty because you chose to do this. So just like always remember that too.
I think that took me a long time. And like I would always use prep as an excuse. Oh, I can't, I'm prepping. Oh, I can't travel. I can't do this. I can't because I'm prepping. It's like, well, what does that even mean? It's like, homie, listen, you're doing maybe an hour of cardio max and maybe an hour of training. So 2 hours of your day is prepping. The rest of the time you already like just eat your food. Like you're not like nothing special's happening. Like really
Yeah.
it's not. It's like you're still going to the workout. It's the same workout. You're just, you're tired going through it. And then you're eating a little less. So sure, you're hungry and you're a little irritable, but when you're prepping, it's like, well, what do you mean you can't go out and have fun because you are just having a calorie deficit? Like, what does that
Yeah.
mean to me? Or so when we kind of think about it and step back and be like, oh, wait, no, I can do all those things and like really challenge it. And that's something that it takes time to learn how, one, it took me time to see how other athletes prepped. And I was so confused because I'm like, I had this crazy like all or nothing mindset. So like I wouldn't go anywhere, wouldn't leave the house, wouldn't do anything. At the
Yep.
very beginning, it was like strict, strict, strict. I'm gonna go to bed at this time and da 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 da. And then I started realizing I started not placing. I'm like, well, what the heck? Am I doing all this sacrifice and it's not working? So then I'm looking at other people. I'm like, how come she's out at the concerts and going out to eat and doing all the stuff and she's still competing and she's in prep? I'm confused. How do you go out to restaurants on prep? I would never do that. I never even knew that was a thing. Like you can just order healthy at a restaurant.
Yeah.
I thought if I'm going out to eat, I have to eat what I want and I have to eat what they have on the menu. No, you can
Yeah. No.
ask for the no sauce and the seasoning and the whatever. And
Dressing
so
on the
now,
side, no
yeah,
cheese,
no, it's
cook it
just
without butter or
lettuce.
oil.
Yeah, like I really didn't know that that was something that you could just ask for until I started realizing, oh wait, all of these other people do it. Because I mean, bodybuilding isn't just a one and done thing. This is multiple years, if not decades.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to go out and experience life for decades, ooh,
Yeah.
I don't want to hang out with you. You know what I mean? Like, who
Yeah.
wants to be around a hangry person all the time? Like, prep can't be your personality. You still need to be true to yourself at a certain point when you are getting close to the show. I get that. Like,
Yeah.
two,
That's
3, 4 weeks
temporary.
out. Yeah, sometimes you're just like, hey, I really don't have the energy. That's a little different, but like, really try. Like, whenever I think you can take your mind off of food, it's always better, like, to get out.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And going back to what you were talking about of like experiencing life. So like my very first season of competing was 2021 because again, 2020
Yeah.
Washington, there were absolutely no shows. Like
Yeah.
every show was canceled, like they were postponed and then they were just outright canceled. So my coaches actually put on a show like exhibition in the parking lot of our gym in October of 2020 just for the clients that wanted to still like compete that year and just to celebrate all of the work that people had done through COVID. And so there are pictures of me like in the parking lot at our gym with a mask on, like with other women who also like went through the process. So it was amazing to be able to celebrate that.
Yeah.
So but again, like going into my very first season of 2021, still very much in lockdown, very much that mindset of like, well, I can't go anywhere anyway. But it created that pattern in my head of like, well, if I'm in prep, like I can't travel, I can't go out to eat, I can't do all these other things. I have to be in bed at a certain time. I have to get up and do my cardio. My cardio has to be done at a specific time. My meals have to be eaten at a specific time. So it was very, very rigid. And going through that first season was really great. I mean, I met my posing coach, Maya, and she's been amazing just to help me with that mindset shift. I went into a 3-month improvement season after that competitive season, and then went into my second season for 2022, and that was where we started to introduce the idea of traveling and like what would that look like. And so then it was, well, why don't we try and travel for a show and see how that process goes, which again is definitely its own learning experience. But I did my first national show in 2022, and it was Junior USA's. And to be honest, it was like the best experience that I think that I've ever had, even like in my competing career to date. I also ended up placing top three, which was just incredible, like going in with no expectations, just wanting to enjoy the process, and to come out with that outcome was incredible.
Yeah.
And then really took time off. And then for my last season in 2023 that I just had, that I wrapped up at the end of November, I told my coach, I'm like, okay, I'm in a different phase of my career. Like I have a lot of opportunity and growth ahead of me. I need to be able to make prep work for my life. Because to your point, like prep is 2 hours a day of like you're doing your cardio, you're doing your training, and then you're just eating your meals like a normal person effectively. And I'm like, I'm going to have to travel because of my job. So, like, how can we make this work? Because I still have to be able to show up as my best professional self in these scenarios, because I have to be this person for my career. And it was like, okay, let's like figure out how this is going to
Yeah.
happen. And we just put guardrails around, okay, in these phases of prep, totally acceptable to travel to New York or San Francisco or like wherever you need to go. And if you are like far enough away from a show, we'll schedule a refeed, and we'll just like pick a restaurant that you're going to with everybody and look at the menu in advance and just select like this is what you can order and this is how you would order it. And then that I did that when I went to New York, and it was great because I still got to go out to this really amazing restaurant with my teammates. I still got to enjoy an incredible meal. Was it exactly what I wanted? No, but it fit my goals, and I still got to be out and social and celebrate some things with people in person. And then my rule of thumb is that if I'm like around like 6 weeks out from a show is when I pretty much lock down travel, just because that's when fatigue is starting to set in. You're hitting a little bit more of the depletion phase, depending on like how much further you have to go. And absolutely for me, like 4 weeks and 4 weeks out and less is like absolutely no travel. Like that's also where I'm like family functions, no, like social events, no, like I gotta go to bed because I'm tired. And so just setting those parameters around these different phases of prep has been really helpful, because then it allows you a little bit more of that mental freedom of, oh no, like I can do all of these things, but just in these 4 weeks, this is temporary, but like this is what I have to focus on. And I'm just going to continue through this process of like, okay, how do I then still travel for work? How do I now adjust when
Yeah.
I do get into my next prep in my new phase of normal based on where I am in my career? Like, how can I make all of this fit? But I know that I can. It's just being flexible. And again, knowing I'm 8 to 12 weeks out from a show, I can still travel to go do things with my team. If I'm 4 weeks out and less, not going to happen.
It does. It's kind of crazy because I mean, I've been prepping for a long time. I prepped so much and I traveled so much on prep with my job. Like I was prepping just, I felt like forever, I swear to you. But all of 22 for sure. And then
It always
2023,
feels like forever.
it feels like forever. It really was. When I look back, I'm like, gosh, when was I not on prep? I'm like, I don't know. But 2023 was the first time, I think I went on a cruise. It was the first time I had never brought any food ever. I had always brought some type of protein, some type of something. Like I just had always just had that mindset since being in prep, or even in off seasons, I would still bring all of my meals when I would travel just because I just know how many calories it is to eat out. And I'm like, I just don't want to deal with that. And then I started just kind of like didn't take food with me. I'm like, can I still make progress or maintain my weight or drop weight or whatever it is without bringing any food? And it was a challenge because I had to meticulously track everything that I was eating. And I was eating, instead of 5 times a day, it was just 3 meals a day. So I could have more. And I was actually under eating because there's not enough protein on normal people's plates. So that was an interesting thing that happens. It was like, whoa, okay. I can do both now. And it took time because I used to macros. I did macros for like 3 years, got good at it, and then I was fed up with it. Then I did meal plan for like 3 or 4 years. And now I'm back on a hybrid meal plan macro-y kind of situation where it's like I know what I can fit in and I know how carbs and proteins and things like that too. And I just kind of found what works. And then like going out to eat to the restaurants, I used to not go out to eat ever because you're in prep. And so
Yeah.
when I would go out to eat, I would just, and I wasn't an off season, I would just get the worst thing, like the worst thing that I had been craving. And now I don't really feel that way just because I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's just another meal. It's not going to make me feel good. Sometimes, yes, I will have like something fun if I can, but most of the time I'm trying to stick as close as I can to a protein, a veggie, a carb, a fast, like something that works really well. And you just learn how to live and shop and eat like year round because you have to be an athlete year round
Mhm.
because if you blow up, you still have to realize, okay, the next prep's coming and it's gonna if I get too far off, I'm gonna have to do so much cardio, even more than I need to. So you just kind of learn of like, okay, after you've done this process several times, you kind of get it. You kind of go, oh, this is why I need to maintain a little bit more lean in the off season just so I can come back and not have like a really
Mhm.
horrible,
Yeah.
awful prep.
Yeah, like not doing 2 hours of cardio at the beginning of prep because you went too far in the off season. And actually, you talking about macros and meal plans made me remember another like thing. Maybe it's a piece of advice, but I remember because I started on meal plans. The coach that I work with, they're a meal plan shop, especially when it comes to prep. It's just
Yeah.
the way that they want to dial their
Yeah.
athletes in just to create the most consistency. And I remember, again, like being in a very vulnerable place during COVID and just dieted down and just questioned a lot about the approach that we were taking in prep just because it felt hard and like the grind was real and the fatigue was real and the food focus was like so front and center for me. It was really hard to break away from that. And I remember like researching and hearing about other coaches that did a macro based approach. And that was really fascinating to me. But what I will say was that it was appealing to me at that moment in time because it was like, oh, what do you mean you can fit in Pop Tarts into your prep? Like, I want to be able to do that where I'm like dieting, but like I can still eat these other things. And now, like, through the seasons that I've had, I realized that that was a very naive mindset to have about macros in general. And for any new competitor, like, understand like what is the structure that works best for you. Like, don't necessarily think that macros is going to be the holy grail of all of it because like you can fit in that Snickers bar like when you're in prep. Like, to be honest, for me, I just don't even want to have that as an option because once your calories get so low anyway, you're trying to prioritize like optimizing the function of your body of what you need, and prioritizing whole foods is also going to help you feel more satisfied than trying to fit in something like a fun food when, again, when your calories are getting low. And so I very much am a proponent for myself personally of doing meal plans in prep because, first of all, my career is crazy and just having one less thing that I have to plan and think about is amazing. I'm just like, just tell me what to eat and when to eat it and I'll just do it, like, because I don't want to have to make more decisions. But in the off season, I'll do more of a macro based approach now, but it's because I've gotten to a place of understanding my body and like what structure feels good and how I want to operate and feel in my physical self on a regular basis, as opposed to feeling like, no, I gotta fit like all these fun foods in because now I can. It's like, no, like I'll just have that stuff later. And if later comes, I'll have it. If it doesn't, then like so be it.
I mean, so I look back at some of my old like prepping strategies from the very first 3 years when I was doing macros, and like I was eating cheese and Cheez-Its and grapes as like carbs and fats, and I was having Greek yogurt and dairy and just peanut butters and like I don't know, just random stuff that it was what I had thought was healthy at the time, and I was tracking it to my macros, so it was perfectly fine. But again, like to get, I'm the same way. If I out of sight, out of mind. If I have that candy or that cookie or that whatever, it just spikes my cravings up worse because then you crave it. So if I don't have it, I don't crave it and I do really well. But anytime I put that sweet back in, okay, the next day I want more, the next night I want more, I want more, I want that feeling, I want the sugar. And then when you can't have it, it almost makes it worse because now you're like, uh-oh, I'm getting deeper into prep. I had a taste of it. I don't know if I can control it. I need it again. So I'd rather just do away. Closer I get, the more clean foods, and it really does help my hunger, being satiated. You just feel fuller, you feel better. I feel not as like bloated. My digestion is great. I don't crash from the sugar. I can really tell if I eat something I'm not used to, I can tell my body is not happy. I'm bloated, I'm distended, I'm holding water. Sometimes I break out. I can just tell I'm a little more sluggish. But if I stick to whole, clean, nutritious prep foods, even though they're boring, I feel great.
Yeah, totally. And I will say for myself, so I am a little bit of, I think, an oddball because I share this a lot, that I am the type of person that if it's in the house, I don't think about it. So like if you look at our pantry, you would be like, why do you have like all these Oreos and candies and chocolates and
Oh,
like
I've never heard of
cookies?
anyone like that before.
Yeah, and it's because I grew up, so my I grew up with my mom and my stepdad in California, and we used to do these big outdoor movie events for local elementary schools, and we would sell concessions and donate the proceeds to the schools, and which was like a super fun thing that we used to do like during the summers. But because of that, we would always have like the king size candy bars. We had a popcorn machine. We had a nacho cheese machine at our house, like a hot dog machine, because like we would take all these things to the movie events that we would host at the schools. But because of that, my house was also like the coveted place for all of my friends in high school to come and hang out with because we had all like the good snacks. But also because of that, I was used to having it in the house all the time. So none of that was like forbidden food or like something that I couldn't have. And so having it in the house for me is almost the opposite, where it's peace of mind because I just don't obsess about it because it's there. And it's like, oh, well, it's like it's there and I could eat it, but I don't feel like it right now. I'll just eat it later because it's like there and available. And I would say pretty much 9 times out of 10 later never comes that I want it. Even in prep, it's like I'll look at it and be like, no, like this doesn't fit my goal right now, so like I'll have it later. Or like if I have a cheat meal or a free meal, like I'll have some of that peanut butter or whatever, and by the time the weekend comes to like that free meal, I'm like, I don't really want that. I'll just have something else. So for
Yeah.
me mentally, it's just been more about like the availability. It's like, oh, it's there. Like we have a candy jar on our counter, and my mother-in-law is always like, how do you not just eat that all the time? I'm like, because it's there. Like I don't even think about it because it's there all the time.
It makes sense. And so I'm the complete opposite. I've tried that strategy and I ended up eating it all. And it was there and I did eat it and it was good. And it was, I
You're like, and
tried
it was
it.
amazing.
It was amazing. I tried to keep the post show treats in the whole prep. And let's say those got eaten before the prep was over and it was not a good thing. I tried. I really did. It was like, okay, just have one. And then it was more and more and more. And I'm
Yeah.
sure like with time, but I've learned for me strategy wise for my personal self when it comes to like having any family size things. It's no, I need single serve packages the closer we get to prep because I am hungry and I'm just gonna eat it.
Yep.
I'll be honest, if it's open, I'm gonna eat it. So I'd rather it just be gone or hidden so I can't think about it or look. Cause then if I know it's there, I know I can eat it. Like it's mine at that point. Like
Yes.
if it's in my house, I'm eating it. But
Yes.
different strategies work for different athletes. So it's important that you find your own way. Okay, so 2023 was last show. So how many shows total have you done?
So I've done 9 shows total since
Wow.
2021, and that's not including the one that we did in the parking lot
Yeah.
in 2020. So yeah, I have tried to do 3 shows every season. It's crazy to say that out loud because 9 shows does sound like a lot.
I mean, it's a lot. Like I've only done 11 because I usually do two every time I compete, like two a year, or now it's like one a year and just like try to make the improvements because I know if I look at my stage shots and I know if I'm too small, the feedback has always been growth, 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 growth. So I'm like, I don't want to waste any more time
Yep.
competing and everything until you're ready or you're close. And like, yes, it's great to get a few shows in, But the very beginning, I'd say probably get one, maybe two done out of the way just so you get your
Mhm.
feet wet, get your feedback, and then take time to grow.
Yes, absolutely. And really do take the judges' feedback seriously if you want to continue to progress in this sport. Like if to like Savannah, your point, if the judges are telling you to grow, take a step back and take the time to grow. Like
That
I
doesn't mean like,
know,
oh, next week I'll just work out harder and I'll be bigger. It's like,
no.
no, growth means time off.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really difficult because again, like you see on social media, like everybody is shredded and like super lean and getting ready for these shows. And you do get the FOMO. Like right now, I'm very much like in my improvement season. I'm not planning to compete until 2025 at this point. And seeing people prepping, I'm just like, I mean, I really want to, but I know that I'm doing the right thing for myself because I had things that I needed to heal within my own body and as well as grow. Like my feedback has been like my balance is good, but it's like you just need more of like everything, like just a little bit bigger everywhere, but like the balance is there. Because if even looking at my pictures from Masters USA back in November, like I got out shouldered. I'm just gonna like call it what it is. It's like my physique looked great. The women who placed the three placings above me all just had much more development in their shoulders and in their glutes. And I'm like, okay, I obviously just need to take the time. So we're just going to take the time.
Yeah. So will this be the longest off season that you've had?
Yes. So my off season that I had before my 2023 season was 10 months, which was the longest that I had taken since competing. And that was very much like a mental adjustment. And before Masters USA in November, I had already spoken with my husband because like I had dedicated these last 3 years to competing, but with
Yeah.
COVID and now coming out of COVID, like we want to be able to travel, like to your point, travel. It's like, yes, I can travel and prep, but there are certain things that we want to be able to do like when I'm not in prep. So we really just want to focus on being able to expand like our travel ability, like being able to go and do things and experience things together without that mental load of prep. And through that conversation with him, I had already decided, okay, 2024, I think like I am going to seriously take that entire year just to be an improvement season, just still focus on training, like healing and again, addressing some of the things like health wise that I've been experiencing and not because of prep. So I don't do want to preface like prep doesn't always cause anything that's happening like
Yeah.
hormonally or like physically with you. Sometimes your body just it is what it is, and just understanding what that process is going to be. But yeah, so it's the longest time that I will be taking away from stage, and I'm not gonna lie, it's still really difficult to acknowledge like not going to be I'm not going to be there on the scene this season, but I'm
Yeah.
here to support obviously like folks like yourself and my other teammates that are getting ready for shows and just living vicariously through them and still be able to be a part of the community. So doing things like this and the seminars and posing clinics, I just love being able to see everybody who is experiencing like bodybuilding for the first time and getting ready for their first show. But yeah, it doesn't get I don't feel like it gets any easier stepping away,
Now,
regardless of how long you've been doing this.
this was the first off season, I think, last, I mean, it wasn't even that long for me. It kind of was, but that I didn't really want to go back into prep. And it was weird because I didn't really know what the goal of this season was. And I didn't know the next time after the show that I would step on stage. And I had
Mhm.
always had two, three, four, five shows, 2 to 3 years in advance planned in my head of
Yeah.
okay, it's gonna be this and then that and then this and then that and then this and then that. And now I'm like, well, I just want to do one, see how it goes, get in shape for summer, and then just after that, I don't know, just maybe take a long time off. It's because I've been doing it for a long time and I've got kind of what I needed out of it. And so now it's like, okay, I love prepping and it is fun. It is a lot though. And I was in
Yes.
a good spot where I wasn't hungry ever.
Mhm.
And I was just like perfectly satisfied once week refeed, being able to go out to eat, having the flexibility. training super hard and heavy, really comfortable with how I was looking, and just felt good, like had energy,
Mhm.
didn't feel crappy, didn't feel depleted. And then it was like, oh, it's time to prep. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
to, I do want to, but I don't want to. So this has been an interesting transition. Now that I'm in it, it's fun, but it's hard. It is hard to have a job, a busy job, like just to do everything that you need to because you have your mental energy. Like it does take a
Mhm.
lot. You're thinking about the shoes and the posing and the da 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 da. So you only have so much mental capacity to put towards all of the things you need to think
Mhm.
about. And prep does take up
Yes.
a big portion of it because you do stress and you do worry and am I dropping, and it's a weekly, it's a daily thing. But like the off season, it's hard because now you have that extra time and you're not necessarily
Mhm.
sure what to do with it. I know at least for me, when I'm used to doing, 2 hours of cardio, hour workouts, that's 3 hours a day, that suddenly you only have 20 minutes 3 times a week, something like that. So it's like, okay, I just got like a part-time job time back.
Yes.
What do I do with myself? And it was good and it was bad because it gives you more time to just kind of think and feel lazy, even though you're still working out and still training and still doing it. It just feels like less because it is less and it's supposed to be less. But I'm excited that you're going to take the time because you'll never regret taking time off, like to come back and grow. And then you'll look back and be like, man, I'm so happy that I wasn't continually just to prep. And you can make micro movements when you are going from year to year and just like competing every year back to back to back. You can definitely make improvements, but you can make huge improvements once there's a break because everyone does
Yes.
need a break.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say, like, I've been embracing this off season in a different way. Like I had said, my career has just had a ton of momentum over the last couple of months. So I'm really embracing being 120% present there to deliver what I need to for my team, for developing my team, and making sure that we are creating something really amazing for where we work and celebrating that together, and being able to not have that mental load of prep and cardio and posing and stressing about like, am I going to be ready for the show, is a relief. The challenge for me is now navigating this as my new normal based on like my new schedule with work, with the a bit like the possibility of having to truly like travel more because of my job, but also just the amount of work that I put in on a daily basis to what I do, being able to manipulate my schedule and prioritize my focus, because it's like the time is going to pass anyway. It's more about like how am I focusing on like my tasks day to day and trying to create a structure in my day where I will still be able to slot in things like cardio when prep does come back next year. Like what days then do I do my meal prep, and making sure that I am setting myself up for success, knowing that I might get an executive meeting slapped on my calendar at the 11th hour and need to do a full blown presentation last minute. It's like I have to be able to account for those things that are out of your control and just make sure that I'm preparing myself to still be able to be my best in all the aspects that I want to be delivering.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time for sure. And again, I definitely want to just like emphasize for those that are just getting into it, embrace yourself as your whole self, because you are more than just what's stepping on stage.
Yeah. Again, listen to that again and again and again. It's like the identity of once you do a bodybuilding, yes, you become a bodybuilder, but you're also who you were before and after. You do change, but you're still you first. And then all of those different titles that you obtain come after you, but you are still yourself, regardless of if you are actively cutting for stepping on stage. Because even you can step on stage in 5 years and still be an athlete. You can still be a bodybuilder if you're never going to step on stage. Like you can always hold that
Yes.
identity and those habits. You don't need to, you can be a bodybuilder without ever stepping on stage too, by just
Hmm.
training the lifestyle and all those things too. So it's good just to hold on to just make sure you have a life outside the gym.
Yes.
You make sure, make sure that there's something going on besides the gym. I used to think that was just crazy. I'd had older competitors tell me, slow down, take off seasons, or like make sure you have life outside of the competing. And I was like, whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
like,
overrated. It's
that's
like, no, it's
overrated.
not.
And then you have to go into an off season. And you're like, oh, I don't really have anything to do besides gym and work. What do I do? What does fun look like? So that is a good point to bring up. Is there anything that we haven't talked about your journey that you would like to finish off with?
No, I'm just excited that I got to have this opportunity to just chat with you today and share some of my story, and hopefully it resonated with some of your listeners. And I'm always here for like pep talk if anybody has questions or wants to learn more about how to be a corporate professional and be a national level competitor. Please like feel free to hit me up on social media. I'm here to share all of the insights and parts of the process that I've gone through.
I did it for two national shows and it was too much for me. Like, couldn't do it anymore. So I feel your pain to a certain extent. Thank you for coming on. If anyone wants to reach out, where can they do so?
Feel free to find me on Instagram. It is my name, Kellie. I think it's an underscore. It might be a dash. I think it's Kellie dash Keehr on Instagram. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks so
We'll
much
put
for
that.
having me.
Thank you for coming on. So I'll put that in the description of this episode. We'll get your episode up on an upcoming Wednesday.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Savannah.
Thank
And thank
you.
you, everyone.